My name is Chuck Savoy. I'm from a little steel town called Phoenixville, 30 miles west of Philadelphia. And I ended up here because I saw a job posting on the billet bank. I'd known about Ernestina for a while. She's a very well-known boat in the industry and saw that they were hiring and applied. And here I am. I'm the bosun. I'm in charge of maintenance of things that are wood, rope, canvas, organizing work parties, making sure tasks get completed. This is a contraction of the phrase boat swain. Sailors tend to be very economical with their words. Over the course of hundreds of years, they just get shorter and shorter. If you see them spelled, there's lots of apostrophes. Part of it is that. Part of it is also a lot of times the vowel gets swallowed by the distance and just the consonants get left. Currently, we just finished a several-year, multi-million-dollar restoration to get her back to probably the best, if not best shape she's ever been in since she was launched, probably. And the current steward is the Massachusetts Maritime Academy. Through the academy, we'll be doing programming with cadets from the academy and then other kind of summer camps and stuff when the school year is out to do sail training and marine education work with her. The boat is 129 this year. There's definitely a bit of a ship of Theseus kind of aspect to it in that there's one or two original pieces. The helm is believed to be original, the ship's wheel, parts of the anchor windlass, the metal castings in there. But in terms of wood, very few pieces from, probably none from the 1890s, some from her Cape Verde packet days. But because one ship went into the shipyard and one ship left, it is considered, to be a restoration, and she's still the same boat. Or the way I like to think of it is the pieces might change, but the spirit remains the same. Boats, I'm not sure if it's a certain tonnage for the requirement to be federally registered, but when boats are federally registered, they're given a unique registration number that needs to be inscribed into the boat. It can't be painted on. It can't be, stenciled. It has to be carved into the boat. It's a non-removable mark. So that the numbers in that beam are Ernestina's unique registration number. We're about 150 feet and change overall. 12 feet is a pretty decent draft. The definition of a schooner is any vessel that has two or more masts, the second of which is as tall or taller than the first, and predominantly fore and aft rigged, meaning the sails are center line to the vessel. If the second mast is shorter than the first, then you get into whether it's a ketch or a yawl. And then if the sails are rigged square, what's called square, perpendicular to the boat, then you get into all sorts of different names depending on where they are and how many yards are square rigged versus fore and aft. The schooners are really popular boats. They're easier to handle with less crew. You can sail closer to the wind with them. And especially for her original purpose of fishing, she would have gone up to the Grand Banks. But schooners are engaged a lot in coastal trade, where there's generally a consistent offshore or onshore breeze. Square rig vessels tend to really shine in transatlantic crossings where you've got the consistent trade winds. Schooners are, like I said, easier to handle with less people. You can use them in lighter winds.
And how many people does it take to sail Ernestina under sail?
We did it with about a dozen on the way down to the Gulf. The caveat to that being we never set our full mainsail. We were using our storm trysail, which is a reduced area sail. Could do it with probably 14, 15 people, bare minimum, I would say, just on how big it is. We've got one of the largest traditionally rigged mainsails in the country. It's about 2,000 square feet, if I remember correctly. Someone told me it's the size of a basketball court. Yeah, we did it with about a dozen, not with the full main. For the full main, I'd probably want 20 people, 15, 20 people. Yeah, to set it, we would definitely want all 15 or 20 of those people split between the two halyards to raise it. But then once it's set, you only need a watch worth of people, 3, 4 people, maybe 5. In voyaging, what you do a lot of times is when you leave, a typical thing for us, kind of a pattern of work for us would be when we would leave a port to go to the next port, we'd have all hands, all 12 of us would be awake, working the boat. We'd get off the dock, get out of whatever harbor we were just in, and then we would set the sails. And then generally, if the wind condition is favorable, if there isn't a storm or other situation where we need to bring them in, the sails would stay up most of the time. We have everyone awake to set them and then kind of stay up, and whatever watch is on would trim them, whether they needed to be let out more or sheeted in. But then if we needed to bring them in because, a storm was coming or something, we'd usually wait till there's a change in watch. So you've got an extra set of people awake, or we would just wake everyone up to do sail handling. Ernestina actually has pretty decent visibility, all things considered. That being said, in the ocean, there's tons of space and you're going to see things long before you hit them. In a regular watch, you'd have one person on helm. You'd have one person who's doing a boat check. Once an hour underway, we walk through the whole boat, look at all the bilges to make sure they're not flooding faster than usual. There's no fire, that kind of thing. Everything's running normally, sounding normally. Helmsperson, boat check, and you'd have a forward lookout. You have someone whose job it is to be either up in the bow, or sometimes if the weather's bad, we stand forward, look out from back here. But you do have someone whose job it is to be looking around, seeing traffic as it kind of comes over the horizon, making sure to be like, hey, did you see that buoy over there? Informing the watch officer that, oh, hey, like I just saw some lights over there. It might be a fishing boat or a tanker or what have you.
At what point would someone go aloft?
Yeah. So schooners, there aren't a lot of reasons to go aloft unless you're actively fixing something or unless you're putting the boat together, taking it apart. So at the beginning of the season, when we were rigging the boat, when we were doing uprig to leave on our trip, there would be one or two people up there for a few hours every day, hanging all the different blocks, running halyards or different lines up there. But once everything is kind of set up, I think probably the most common reason to go up there is like if a flag gets stuck. Like our PA horn is kind of funny right now. We might need to tighten that or adjust it. But for the most part, once the boat is rigged or down rigged, we don't go up there frequently. Versus on a square rigged vessel, you're up there all the time for sail handling. When we get our topmast up, we'll have topsails and people will need to go aloft to work with those, which would be an added reason to go up there. But since we're in what's considered her traditional winter rig with no topmast, there isn't much day-to-day reason to be up there. Traditionally, for a Gloucester fishing schooner and most other fishing schooners, to my knowledge, in the winter, you would take your topmast down kind of October through April or May. You would have just your lower mast. You'd have what's called your lower sails, or our main for jumbo and jib. And then in the summer, because the weather is less intense, you put your topmast up, let you fly on top, you do a little more canvas and light wind.
Any fun stories about taking your Ernestina out?
Yeah, I mean, she's an amazing boat. She sails incredibly well. Part of the restoration was moving about 30,000 pounds of ballast from inside the vessel into the keel, which made her much more stiff. She comes back up faster when she rolls, but that means she carries her canvas really well now. She sails very sweetly. I guess a funny story is during the watch that I was on and tending the boat for, one of the hinges came off the freezer. And as the bosun, it's my job to kind of like do those repairs. And I was, like there's 30 minutes left in watch. It's been a long day. I'll fix it first thing tomorrow when I get up for breakfast. And the oncoming watch and some of our offgoing watch were like, all right, well, like we're going to have ice cream. They're all having this like ice cream party. And I'm like, I don't want ice cream. I just want to go to sleep. Then I sleep for 15, maybe 20 minutes. Then I get a like, hey, Chuck, we need you real quick. And I wake up and they're like, the other hinge came off the freezer door and we don't know what to do. And can you fix it, please? And I was like, yeah, guys, like I'm like in my pajamas scrambling around for the screws I need to put the freezer door back together. And meanwhile, I've had no ice cream and everyone's just like, sorry. I'm like, yeah, no ice cream. And yeah. I mean, it's just a real privilege to be able to get to work on Ernestina specifically, but boats like this in general that have such a long and storied past. I got started on a boat out of Philadelphia that's from 1901 and is a Portuguese cod fishing boat. Really a privilege to be able to have a job like this where I get to be outside, I get to work with my hands, and I get to like preserve these little pieces of history. I mean, Ernestina is a national historic landmark, which is amazing. I've worked on a few other boats that are national registered historic places, and I think it's really neat to see that and to be able to like hold on to these little links to the past and kind of share them with the public and future generations.